Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. Commonly seen as a business leader, initiator of new ideas and business processes. Management skill, of course, and strong team building abilities, well, those are often perceived as essential attributes. Leadership management ability and team building, essential qualities. Strong negotiating skills and consensus-forming abilities, simply a must. Capabilities of initiating and introducing new technologies, managing efficiency and productivity, and generating new products and services, characteristic qualities. He's a catalyst for change, highly creative with a tendency to imagine new solutions for finding opportunities for profit and reward. The entrepreneur. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, July 15, 2013, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mandela. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk? Well, you could say Atlanta's very own entrepreneur in residence, Ashish Mistry. As the Tech Talk turns its focus on the revolution and evolution of the Atlanta technology startup community. Ashish functions as an investor and an advisor to young companies. His experience includes leadership roles with high-growth companies in technology-enabled services, enterprise IT, e-commerce, and consumer services. His first entrepreneurial role was a co-founder of Vertrex Networks, acquired by Leapfrog Services. Then an early team member of Air Defense, later acquired, then followed by a senior leadership role with RCMS Group, later acquired. Today he serves as president and CEO of KontrolFreek. He spent 2 tours as entrepreneur in residence at Georgia Tech's Advanced Technology Development Center, working with startups across Georgia. He's active in nonprofit organizations that foster entrepreneurship, including board positions with Venture Atlanta and the Atlanta CEO Council, as well as serving on committees with the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. The perception of opportunity in the absence of resources. Emphasis on team versus hierarchy. Fast decisions rather than deliberation. And oh yes, that business about equity rather than cash compensation. It's about innovation. It's about entrepreneurs, Atlanta's startup community, and today's Tech Talk, Ashish Mistry, on the mind that can figure out the best conceivable option and make it happen, the startup technology entrepreneur. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Ashish, welcome to Tech Talk.
Great, thanks for having me.
You know, we've got a great opportunity to get a sense of perspective about the Atlanta startup community. When I saw the opportunity for us to have a conversation, I thought it reminded me of the early days of cable when a lot of people who were there would have remembered that Ted Turner sent out a poster with a picture of him with a cowboy outfit on and his leg on a tree stump saying, "I was cable before cable was cool." I think anybody that knows you knows that you were part of the startup community long before the startup community was cool. Let's talk a little bit about that, past, present, future. Give us a sense of perspective of what you've seen over the years and what you see today, and maybe even take a look at where it's going.
Yeah, so I think obviously we're on a short time frame, but to put the question in perspective, I think Atlanta's got a lot of great bones to build from. If you look at kind of the back of the day to the MSA guys and the Peachtree guys that were building software companies that really drove a lot of what was, the foundational elements of software broadly. And you look at what's come as a result of that, and the companies and the management teams that have spawned out of those, they've really created a lot of what's here today. And in this next phase, I think what's even more interesting is that you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that aren't doing the traditional software businesses that we did in Atlanta in the past, and have ventured out into some of the consumer fields as well as into tangential areas that are really doing well, but using a lot of those same kind of historical kind of whether it's skills or lessons or even some of the people that were involved in those businesses. And so it's great to see that there's some continuity as well as some fresh blood.
One of the things that kind of amazed me the first time I ever saw a virtual world engine in terms of a gaming prospect, I thought to myself, well, is that really the future? Is it a case where it isn't just a game, that ultimately we'll be playing inside the game and it'll actually be m-commerce of some kind or another? I guess my point being is that I know that you're tracking into that space and have over a period of time. I think coming from some other diverse backgrounds that kind of led you in that direction. But I guess I'm leaning towards the hot one right now being KontrolFreek. But tell us a little bit about the companies that you've been involved with and maybe a little bit about KontrolFreek and maybe kind of connect the dots how they may kind of all go together. And again, to use the analogy I was bringing up, I'd love your opinion on just how much of gaming is going to be influencing or already influencing general E or M commerce.
Yeah, well, so just quickly, my background, obviously having spent my entire career both in Atlanta as well as kind of in this early stage space, we've been involved with 3 companies, my first of which was Vertex Networks. We started that almost out of college, and ultimately it became Leapfrog Services. My college business partner is still the CTO there after almost 13 years. Our second company that I was involved with was Air Defense, and that was in the enterprise software space and specifically information security. We've made, basically invented security for Wi-Fi networks there and helped to build a really successful business. And a lot of those first 2 experiences led me to kind of, to where I am today. We had a third company which was, didn't do as well, but in some ways was just as important to influencing what we're doing now. But ultimately, all those experiences and the skills learned in those are culminating with what we're doing at KontrolFreek. And so, KontrolFreek, you may not know, is the maker of performance gaming gear. And so, the simple pitch is we basically make accessories for Xbox and PlayStation gamers to help them game better. And so we make these great little devices that snap onto the controllers, and gamers love it. In fact, we've got almost 500,000 people in our community that are enjoying it. And we built all those communities and the customer base and all those things from a lot of the tactics we learned from those prior companies, whether it was channel sales at Air Defense or customer acquisition online at Vertex. A lot of those things have been influencing what we're doing at KontrolFreek.
I think we say here that it's the same thing, only different, based on the vertical that you're dealing with, healthcare, fintech, logistics, and beyond. One of the things that we're sensitive about is the entertainment industry and digital entertainment. Obviously, a lot of, when I say the same thing, only different, a lot of the things that are happening based on clouds, applications, high-speed connectivity are, to use the word disruptive is almost overused anymore because they're radically changing ecosystems. Do you see the concept of, when you're talking about the evolutional advance of KontrolFreek, getting into that gray area where it sort of becomes almost like a day trader type thing, where inevitably we're kind of dealing in some kind of overall environment that isn't unlike an Xbox type gaming situation, or is that a little too ethereal?
Yeah, so my vision for that is probably a little bit. I may be dating myself, or probably not dating myself, but we're in the widgets business at KontrolFreek, and so we get asked a lot, hey, what do we plan to do next? And we've thought about the widgets to digits strategy for the business. We know that 100% of our customers are online, and that there's an opportunity to do something that's not just making physical goods and shipping them to consumers. But again, that marketplace of whether it's virtual worlds and kind of the MMO space is morphing and changing really almost on a quarterly basis. And there'll be opportunities there. What we're trying to do right now is just stay really focused on making sure that the customer likes the product we have before we get too far out of bounds and end up really kind of venturing off when we should be kind of focusing. And so the short answer is we're trying to stay kind of as close to home as we can right now before we start taking any field.
Sure. Well, focus, no two ways about it. It used to be location. But I think also it's a case where nothing is static anymore. Everything is so fluid that I'm assuming, just being the investor that you are, that your eyes are always open and wherever opportunities are is where you're going to head. But let's talk a little bit about being a strategic investor. How do you understand what makes you know or get a gut feeling that one idea or one innovation may be the one you want to play versus the other?
Yep, and I think it's a great question, and we get asked that as well. And I think that the simple is that experience is the best teacher, and the things that we at BLH invest in. So switching gears, right? Obviously, we also wear another hat, which is managing partner of BLH Ventures. And so the whole point is that we're investing in things that we know and understand. And so, like the KontrolFreek experience, we understand the video game space. We understand e-commerce as a result of having these direct consumer relationships. And so we invest in things that we know. So we invest in e-commerce, we invest in information security, and we invest in recurring revenue business services. And so those are all three areas with which I've got experience and background, and really, as much as anything, relationships that can help the companies that we're investing in and the companies that we're yet to invest in. So,
bottom line, both sides, whether you're looking for money or investing, line comes up, show me the money. Now I'm going to look at or ask you to take a look at the investment community, past, present, future. There's been a lot of conversation about that in Atlanta. But also, what about the new crowdsourcing trend? What you're feeling about the traditional, if you can call it that, venture capital marketplace, and then something that's a little new and edgy as far as crowdsourcing is concerned? Yeah.
So I think to come back one step, if you've got a good idea and you've got the right people around the table, you can get funding. I don't know. There's no issue of getting money in Atlanta. Everybody says that, but there's not an issue if you've got the right people and and you're attacking the right market. That said, crowdfunding is a little bit different. We've yet to figure out kind of how we would attack crowdfunding. Again, the interesting opportunity there is, in my belief, is for products. You've got these product marketplaces that exist that you can prototype something out, and you might be able to get some people to pre-order your product and use it for product development in some cases if you're a larger organization. But again, I think that it's the Wild West. I think there will be some interesting opportunities, but I think there'll be also people taken advantage of, and I think that's to me is a big concern of kind of the crowdfunding model.
One of the things that maybe go into a little bit of detail about your revenue model as it relates to KontrolFreek.
So, I mean,
you're building. You mentioned, I think earlier or in our conversations, is it 500,000 or 1 million participants that you've already got online registered?
Yeah, we've got 500,000 people in our community, and so we define community as a customer, as Facebook follower, as a Twitter follower, or I'm sorry, Facebook like or Twitter follower, and so with Instagram and Google Plus, we've got lots of people that are in and around our company, influencing what we do and also what we do next.
How do you generate awareness?
Yeah, so we do it in a couple different ways.
I mean, social media?
Yeah, social media. We're very adept at participating in that, and the key there for us has always been to be authentic. On the traditional side of things, we use Google and things like YouTube. YouTube, if you search YouTube for KontrolFreek, you'll come up with like 190,000 videos, and we haven't created but 5 or 6. And so the community does most of the work, and hence we dub KontrolFreek to be an open source company in some ways, in that we're just here to steward the business and kind of get out of the way. The customers know more about what they want than we do, and so our goal is just to make sure that we stick around long enough to make good things for them, and hopefully we're rewarded in the process.
Well, you're branding the community, aren't you, as well? I mean, you were talking about dating yourself. I'm thinking about parrot heads. What do you call yours? Community freaks or something? What? I know there's a term.
We don't have a name for an individual. We try not to call them freaks, but ultimately they're under the KontrolFreek brand, and then collectively they're in Freak Nation.
Freak Nation. So, love it. Great stuff. Okay. So one last question. I think our listeners would probably be think that we're not taking full advantage of the opportunity. We talked a little bit about the startup community and a little bit about a lot of your background and involvement in it. Now let's talk about not just where it is today. What about the future? Where do you see it going in the future? And obviously a healthy, ongoing, consistent incubator, if you will, in terms of economic development. And would give us a little bit of a perspective on the future.
Yeah, I'm generally bullish on what Atlanta brings to the table. We've matured a lot in the segments in which we operate and kind of how we operate, as well as the really the establishment of additional nodes of activity. So taking things here in Midtown beyond ATDC, like Hippopotamus and ATV and Buckhead, and you've got things even that are going to be happening at Ponce City Market that will end up being nodes of activity and congregation points for people that are open and willing to participate in the startup ecosystem. And so that said, I think we'll see more concentrations of these nodes, and as the connectivity kind of across these nodes starts to establish and becomes more well-rooted, I think we're going to have more opportunities of keeping students from Georgia Tech and Emory and State here working on our companies, attracting more dollars both from locals and as well as from out of town, working on companies that will become small and then grow into big tech companies that will buy smaller tech companies. And once that will establish, over the next 10, 20, 30 years, I think you'll see a different Atlanta in the startup and tech ecosystem.
In bigger investor, bigger technology companies, what about general enterprise? Do they wait until the innovation is matured out and becomes a product that they have to buy, or do they reach into the innovation environment in the earlier stages and actually cultivate a relationship, say, for example, like GM with their innovation centers?
They're doing it. I just happened to be in New York with the guy that's going to come and run the innovation center, and so literally I bumped into him, and he was moving down here. And I think what you're seeing now is with the AT&Ts and the Panasonics and alike having these innovation centers, foundries, whatever you want to call it, they understand that they need to get to the game early. And they're not the acquirers of a lot of these startups. They're the first customers, and the fact is that they want to be, and the fact is that they're showing up is huge. And so, as these smaller companies grow into larger ones, they'll be relying on these larger enterprises to help them, really kind of spread the message as well as just kind of validate the product. And so, I think those are as much opportunities as anything else.
Can applications exist? I mean, do you have to develop yourself into a greater economy or be acquired? Can you actually, like for example, I know, and from an amateur standpoint, having dealt with several VCs in my past, that they're the kind that rapidly acquire, build, and turn and flip and get out of it, and then others that are actually building a company for what they'll perceive to be the long term. Either or, both, and is there one better than the other? And what does a app look like in terms of longevity and actual attraction when you're talking about a pretty fluid environment where nothing is stagnant, or static rather, and so can that app actually exist for very long before it melds into something or hybrids into something else?
So I think the answer, simply put, is that building sustaining companies is viable. You can build a business that generates cash and pays people well and adds to the base both from an employee as well as from a tax standpoint, and that's okay. As an investor, we have the flexibility, since we don't have any outside capital, to be patient and to look at it from a longer term perspective. Again, it's just the market. When you're looking at investors that have certain constraints on their investment thesis, they obviously have time frames and whatnot in which to invest and get out. But again, it goes back to what I think Atlanta can be. I think we'll have more companies that are long sustaining, cash generating or public organizations, and I think it'll be great.
Well, Ashish, it's to say that you've been a part, without question, and you continue to be a crucial player in terms of the evolution, but it has more to do than just good investment and good business sense. I think your level of integrity and your capability in terms of visioneering has just been proven time and time again, not only in the investments that you've made, but the great mentoring and outreach that you've done as an individual and as a company. So hats off to you on the great job that you've done in the past. Best of luck to continued success, and thank you for taking a few moments out of what I know to be a very busy schedule to join us today on Tech Talk.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.